Today, to inaugurate this latest iteration of Hazard Gaming's channel, I have welcome to Hazard Gaming's YouTube channel. My name is Daniel Hodges, and you may have heard my podcast Penny Red. There are a few of those episodes on this channel already. Originally it was a podcast only, and then there were a few video casts which you can check out down there somewhere probably, and so I thought to myself, you're buying an awful lot of role-playing books and sort of putting them on the shelf, not really even looking at them. So I made a deal with myself that every time I bought a role-playing book, I'm going to actually record a short piece for the channel, and you can see what the book looks like. I can't promise that I'll have read the book ahead of time, but if I know a little bit about it ahead of time, I will tell you about that. Otherwise, you'll at least have a chance to look at it and maybe decide whether it's the sort of thing you're interested in, or maybe it's not the sort of thing you're interested in. In any case, today, to inaugurate this latest iteration of Hazard Gaming's channel, I have a box of books. I went on to Kijiji, which I do from time to time. For those that are maybe not from North America, Kijiji is the sort of eBay's classifieds, if you like. You put stuff on there for local sales, and you go over there, shady sort of things going on, meet in dark alleys and under lights and car parks and so forth, and exchange your Beanie Babies or books or what have you. So anyway, I was on Kijiji, and I do a search for Dungeons and Dragons here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I saw a box of books, and it said Dungeons and Dragons books, $60. So I went and I bought this box of books for $60, and I haven't looked inside it. I've got no idea what's in it. So the first episode today is going to be me pulling the stuff out of the box and seeing what we have. So here we go. Here's the first book. It is the Monster Manual Core Rulebook 3. It's for 3.5, I think. 3.5? 3.5. It's got pictures of monsters and stuff in it. Mimic, Merfolk, Lamassu, Gnome, Goblin. Oh, hang on a minute. Dwarf Society. This is just the Monster Manual. It's called Core Rulebook 3, but it is the Monster Manual. So I guess that's the one that you really need if you want the old school Monster Manual, but you want to play 3.5, I guess. This is back in when they went for D20. And yeah, so it's got all the classics in it, this one here, I guess. Bears. There's some sort of a Hellcat, Chiton, Devil, a Destrachan. Never fought one of those, but whatever. Anyway, so if you're into 3.5, I think this is what would be the this one would be what is the basic Monster Manual for 3.5 or 3.0. And you can see here it says Core Rulebook 3 at the bottom. So that doesn't mean Monster Manual 3, it means Core Rulebook 3. Don't be a dummy like me. Read carefully. And apparently it's by Skip Williams, Jonathan Tweet, and Monty Cook. Some of those monsters look like they belong to TSR in the day. But anyway, Monster Manual. First book. I'm not going to do that's a $13 bill all day long style thing. Like, I don't know the circumstances by which I came by these books. It's not really about making money off it. I was just interested in making sure they got to somebody that was going to care for them, I guess. I don't doubt there's more than $60 worth of books in here, but at the same time, you know, there's I think there's something to be said for books going to places where they're going to be cared for. Apparently this box had been sitting in somebody's house. Somebody moved out, they left them behind, and they got sick of them sitting around, so they sold them, $60. Apparently one of these books in here is worth quote-unquote a pretty penny. I'm not sure exactly what a pretty penny is. The chap that was selling had no idea about what any of them were, but apparently one's worth a pretty penny. See if you can spot which one's the pretty penny. Next book. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, The Complete Book of Villains. Okay, this Complete Book of Villains actually looks like, yeah, it actually looks like a pretty good book. Yeah, nice. Okay, so it's not just like a whole bunch of stat blocks for villains. It's actually about how to use your villains and so forth. There are some villains in here, but it has chapters such as defining your villain, henchmen, flunkies, and lackeys, villainous organizations, introducing your villain, delivering the goods, monsters to villains, advanced villains, creative villainy, a compendium of villains, and a catalogue of 4 villains, and some villain tables. Anyway, so I think they'd be pretty handy for any game, actually. Like maybe even for something like Blades in the Dark might be a good way to get some ideas for organizations and that sort of thing. The Complete Book of Villains. Nice. Chicago by Night. Chicago by Night, I think, is one of the first books for the Old World of Darkness, Vampire: The Old World of Darkness. This particular book, if you got that original Vampire book, a lot of the references in the back and the short adventure were to personalities from Chicago. Well, actually, no, they were from Milwaukee. Chicago was right next door, but there was the setup in the book was that there was some sort of rivalry between those two cities. Yeah, so this is perfect bound. I just open it up and the spine here cracked, so those pages probably are going to fall out any day now. But you know what? If you like to collect books, great. Myself, I like to use them. I'm hoping that none of them doesn't fall apart, but if it does, oh well. Yeah, so what would this be good for? I guess it'd be good for Old World of Darkness. Probably also be good for the city of Chicago, maybe sort of a dark city of Chicago. So you could use that for any sort of modern setting, probably. That's one of the things the White Wolf books were, in my opinion, very strong on, was setting and sort of having the interactions between the people. So probably a handy book to have. Space Master, Companion 1. I don't really know anything about this. I know about Roll Master, so I assume that this is for a supplement for that. It's a companion, Space Master companion, so I don't know exactly what you can do with this. Master development point schedules, miscellaneous optional rules, optional combat rules. I think there are probably enough combat rules already for Roll Master or Space Master. But anyway, so the back says, Space Master Companion 1 has something for every Space Master, the role-playing game player. 11 new professions: anarchist, artist, con artist, evolutionist, investigator, law enforcer, lawyer, merchant, rescue worker, teacher, and non-professional. I don't exactly know what a non-professional is, but apparently you can roll up a non-professional. Space Master, Companion 1. Is that worth a pretty penny? I don't know. Maybe. Manual of the Planes. Okay, this I think is a book that has gone all the way through for the various iterations of Dungeons & Dragons. It's got some references to planes and so forth. I remember in the back of the original Player's Guide for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, there was sort of a short section about the various planes, about how they all fitted together. I found that I like the diagram, I like the idea of it, but they were very, very short on details. So I guess if you're interested in that type of thing, then this is probably a good book to have. Again, this looks like it's 3.5. We've got the nature of planes, connecting the planes, characters and magic, the material plane, the transitive planes, the inner planes, the outer planes, the demi-planes, and so on and so forth. Got a few monsters hiding out in the back here, fire elementals and so forth. It said something about a map here somewhere. I'm just going to see if I can bring one of those up to show it off. You see, that's how you know that I haven't looked through this box before, because I'd have all that stuff. Okay, there we go. There's the abyss. There's sort of a thing of the abyss right there. Anyway, so Manual of the Planes. As I say, 3rd edition. It's pretty dusty and dirty on the outside. I guess that's what happens when it's hanging out in a living room for a long period of time. But anyway, Manual of the Planes. Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. Guide to the Sabbat. Sabbat? I don't know. Say whatever you like. These are the, I guess these are they're a type of vampire that embraces vampirism, whereas Vampire the Masquerade, the name is sort of in it, like it's a masquerade for the vampires. They try to blend in with human society. They're not allowed to do anything that violates the masquerade. And the Sabbat, whatever, they embrace their vampirism. And they reject all of that, all the tenets of that. They're free. They enjoy being a monster. So I guess this is if you want to play the Shabbat. It's got stuff in it like let's see here. Sword of Cain, Around the Fire, Sons and Daughters, The Gifts of Cain. See, that's one of the things about the storyteller is that. It's often difficult to tell what the things actually are, because they're all sort of story-like, which is strong if you're going to read it, but it's a little bit more of a challenge if you want to actually get into it. But anyway, so here we have one of the Malkavian anti-tribu, which basically means all of the regular tribes, clans from Vampire have an anti-version of that, and so you're going to have Bruja anti-tribu, Tremere anti-tribu, and so on and so forth. And then there are some specific ones for the Shabbat. You can tell that this is sort of not revised maybe, but later on, because it's a sort of a brighter green, sort of a more minty green, I suppose, book than the original. The original is a very dark green. So, Guide to the Sabbat. Shabbat. Tribe book. Malkavian. Clan book, I should say. So yeah, so this is, there's a little joke in here somewhere. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, this is the original one. There's a little joke in here. Somewhere there is in a number of the preceding books, I'm not sure exactly which ones, but a number of the preceding books there was editing mistakes or things were missed. So somebody would make some kind of a reference in the book, and then they would say, turn to page X to see the turn to page X to see the such and such a table, or such and such a person, or whatever. Yeah, so somewhere in here, if I can find it, I can't guarantee that I will. I think it's in this book. Somewhere in here there is this is page X. This looks to me to be for a later edition, so maybe it's not in this one. Because Malkavians are known for, or they're the crazy vampires, right? They're the mentally unstable ones. But judging by the typeface in this, I actually think this is for a newer version, so they might have taken that joke out, because obviously it wouldn't work if they'd caught all those X's. But one of the interesting things about this clan book is that not only does it have the regular characters in it, but at that time, and still today, there are some around. There are live action role playing groups. It's very, very strong, particularly around this time. And so if you look in here, you've not only got a talk show radio host there, but if you look on this other side here, you can see that there is a live action Mind's Eye Theatre, Laws of the Night maybe type thing in it. So yeah, so I think maybe you could use it for both. I don't know for a fact, but I never did the LARPing, so I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it looks like to me. In any case, Clan Book Mokavian. Al-Qadim, Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. It's a pretty fat book. I'm going to guess, judging by the title, it's some sort of facsimile of Middle Eastern culture. I don't know if you can necessarily see that in the camera there, but a lot of the lettering is gold embossed, right? It's sort of, you can see a metallic sort of a thing going on there, which is quite nice. It's a nice looking book. One thing I will say about that is it makes the book quite hefty, but if you look at it carefully, you'll notice that with that detail at the top, it comes down the page about 1.5 inches, so the number of words in here is substantially less than it might otherwise be. So anyway, Al-Qadim, Arabian Adventures by Jeff Grubb with Andrea Hayday. Andrea, maybe? Magic carpets, ghoulish vixens, genies rising from the sand in a whirlwind of smoke and fire, such wonders spun into tales by the fabled Scheherazade. 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 Anyway, something like that. Enchanted a king for 1001 nights. The Al-Qadim campaign will enchant role players for 1001 more. Okay, so 3 years. This book's good for 3 years, apparently. If you're about to discover an exotic realm, also you are about to discover an exotic realm inspired by the tales of Sinbad, Ali Baba, and other classics from the Arabian Nights. Okay, you got new character classes, rules for adventuring, including desert survival, proficiencies from camel riding to haggling at the bazaar, new spells and unique realm of magic, an introduction to Zakara Land of Fate, a new setting for the Al-Qadim campaign. Your flying carpet awaits, apparently. Once upon a time, this book was worth $23. Apparently, $23. Still seems in pretty good condition. It's a nice looking book. Dungeons & Dragons, 2nd edition. Probably good for anything, any sort of game where you're going to head into the desert, I suppose. Al-Qadim. Right, so now we're into the vertical books, which is going to make this a little bit trickier for me to get them out, so bear with me. Oh, here we go. The Masquerade Player's Kit. So, the Masquerade Player's Kit is actually, this is the rules for Mind's Eye Theatre, as it's called. Masquerade Player's Kit. So, this is some rules for doing the, that sort of the live action role playing. You can see there are some pictures of people live action role playing there and so forth. As I said, I never did any of that, but it was very popular at one point, and I think it still is amongst certain people. But yeah, so the Masquerade Player's Kit. So this here would be for people to use maybe rules if they're setting up a live action role playing type thing. That was a big deal of the thing. You can see here, Mind's Eye Theatre. That's what it was called, the live action role playing version of World of Darkness. Player's Kit. I didn't say what was in it, did I? No more dress rehearsals. Enter the world of vampire, dark, chilling, and erotic. Who are these creatures? Lights, camera, action. Quickly go through what's going on in here. Clan politics, expanded creation, prelude, handouts. Okay, it doesn't really tell you much of what's going on, but yeah, so live action role playing. It's probably got some stuff in it for everybody, but yeah. Mind's Eye Theatre. Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, The Complete Wizard's Handbook. This is around about, these books came out at around about the time of when they were producing a lot of supplemental materials. I'm pretty sure it's pejorative, but I'm not sure why it's called that, but these were called splat books. I don't know what splat books, what the splat part of it means. But anyway, they're just additional information. Like you take your wizard, I guess, and you do a whole bunch of like you add some more flair and stuff like that. In a way, at about this time, there was another game called Shadowrun. Maybe there's some of that in here, I don't know. And they were big on having lots and lots of books, and people were buying lots and lots of books. So I think I think a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon. But anyway, so this here is all about wizards, I guess. If you thought all wizards were alike, think again. The Masters of Magic now have a new guide to creating more interesting and imaginative mages, just when you thought you had them figured out. So you're going to learn a lot with this book, Splat Book, Wizard's Handbook. Second edition. It's got a bit of water damage inside it. I don't know if you can see that actually. You can sort of see it on the side there. Water. It's not cat pee, that's the main thing. Yeah, you can see there's some damage of some sort in there. I'm not sure what that's from. Splat Book number 2. The Complete Fighter's Handbook. This one here you can see was $19.50 when it first came out. And again, this is more information about Dungeons and Dragons. Chance of failure, standard cost of armor, banded mail, leather mail, shield, medium, buckler, so on and so forth. So it has extra information about the sort of things you find in the first edition. So, for example, in here there is also so whereas in the first edition there were the book Unearthed Arcana or Arcana or however you want to pronounce it, there were a whole bunch of new classes introduced, and then when they came to second edition they got sort of brought into this. So there were those there. There was also Oriental Adventures, and so you can see samurais are in here as well. And I just noticed something on my way by. This awesome picture right here. Look at this person right here. Do you suppose they're going, oh, how many times do I have to listen to the story? What am I going to have for a dinner? Am I going to have mead with my dinner? Am I going to have ale? What am I going to have in my trencher? What if somebody's put into their the potage? What am I going to have for my dinner? Look at that. Could there be a less interested person listening to this dwarf story? I don't know, maybe the person with their back away from the camera is less interested. Anyway, The Complete Fighter's Handbook, second edition. The Succubus Club. The Succubus Club, judging by the cover, all of the games had this sort of motif. You can see this right here. This sort of motif, traditionally associated with the with vampires. That sort of thing meant vampires. Claw marks sort of meant werewolf and so forth. So the Succubus Club is like a club that is a Succubus Club is a sort of a venue, if you like, in Chicago. If you take a look at it here, you can see this is definitely a first edition book. You can see that the font is slightly different, and the layout is pretty basic sort of layout. But the Succubus Club is all about that location. So again, the Succubus Club, pretty handy probably for almost any game where you've got some kind of a hangout for people. There's floor plans and stuff in it, you can see. So you get some sweet floor plans of the Succubus Club. Mosh pit. They've got an allocated moshing area. That was a thing back in the 90s, moshing. Yeah. And there's a couple of what they would call chronicles in there. Some stories. Got some sweet art in there. This guy here looks pretty serious about what he's got going on. Sweet haircut. Yeah, the Succubus Club. Probably good pretty much for anything. This is a first edition book for Vampire the Masquerade. Could probably use it for anything. Werewolf the Apocalypse. This is a second edition book. You can see the cover. Rawr! Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you there. This is, so this is the book that I was talking about a little bit about the motif earlier on. You can see around the edge, you see you've got kind of these claw marks and so forth around the edge. So, yeah, that's sort of the motif of werewolf. This book looks like it's in pretty bad shape. It's had a bit of a rough time. You can see the spines coming away. But yeah, so this is werewolf. This is all about werewolves, playing werewolves in the same world of darkness that vampires exist, and the werewolves and the vampires are sort of going head to head in a larger sort of a meta story. And in this, in the cosmology of the werewolf, there are three things. There is the weaver, there is the worm, and there is the wild. The worm is associated with destruction, but not just destruction. In recycling, rebirth, all that sort of thing. Like everything must be devoured, decomposed, and returned to the earth, and then so then it can become part of the wild. The wild is like the unfettered life force of the mythos, and then there is the weaver, and the weaver takes this untrained, chaotic life force and turns it into real things. And so in the game, the werewolves are the wild. They represent the wild. They're unfettered. Vampires represent the weaver because they are stasis, right? Like they never change. Like theoretically, they live forever until some werewolf destroys them or something. And so yeah, Werewolf the Apocalypse. That's the sort of the source book. That's the second edition, as I say. It's got the little claw marks in the front there. Werewolf the Apocalypse. And I did happen to notice that there's another werewolf book in here. So we've got Rage Across the World. This was $20 at one point. And this one's got Cairns, Places of Power, Rage Across Russia. Okay, so there are two different books here that you can use for that sort of thing. So you've got sort of discussion of like Russia. You've got some talks about cairns. So like these are special places, like sacred places where there's lots of other stuff going on associated with really wild creation and so forth. So yeah, so that's what that's all about. So originally there were two books released separately, and then they put them together in what I refer to as an omnibus, where you can get more than one, where they put them all in together, and it's probably saved you a little bit of money doing that. And this is from White Knight at some point. Rage Across the World, Volume 1. Yeah. So if you just want to get those games, but you don't want to have to get them separately, you probably save a bit of money getting the omnibuses. Have a look for those. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, The Castle Guide. Okay, so in the early days of Dungeons and Dragons, there was basic Dungeons and Dragons, and then there was expert Dungeons and Dragons, and then there was companion Dungeons and Dragons, and there were masters, and then there was immortals. And so the first game, if you like, the basic Dungeons and Dragons had sort of all the rules you might need to use up until, third level, something like that. And then the second version of the game, if you like, the expert rules, they had stuff about going around outdoors, the great outdoors, that sort of thing. So there were special rules for that. And then companion, I think companion is the one that had the rules about castles and stuff. So this is what that's all about, I suppose. Castle Guide. Part of the reason maybe it was $60 for this box of books is there's quite a lot of stuff on here. I don't know what that is. It's a red drink or something. I don't know. It's pretty sticky, I can tell you. I'll have to wash my hands after this. This looks interesting. We've got here castle construction. And it talks about the various bits and pieces you can have in the construction. We've got a wall stone, a wall wooden. Then we've got the workforce, smaller forces. Using monsters as part of the workforce. Work seasons, castles on the moor, monthly event, monster attacks. There's even a section on labour disputes. So that'll be pretty fun for your role-playing game. You could role-play a labour dispute as you're building your castle. Some kind of a safety infringement or something like that, perhaps. Perhaps too much safety, perhaps. People are not getting paid for their allocated hours, or people not just sticking to their jobs, crossing union lines and so forth. So if you want to role-play some labour disputes, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, the Castle Guide, with free gunge. Nice. Under a Blood Red Moon. This is one of my favourite things about White Wolf. At that time, they were big into what we refer to now as crossovers. Because if you look here, you can see the War of Chicago for Werewolf the Apocalypse and Vampire the Masquerade. So this is kind of a crossover, if you like Chicago is where they're going to go head to head. So yeah, that's what's going on. So yeah, so you get these crossover things where you can have vampire players playing with werewolf players. It's pretty fun. And one of the really nice things that they did at around about this time was, because when they put these books together, it's not like a dungeon where you just kind of go from one room to the next room to the next room to the next room. What you have is a group of scenarios sort of set up, loosely held together. You're supposed to create this idea that it's a living world rather than just being a world that only exists when the player's there. So there's really cool things like timelines. You see that? Timeline for Under a Blood Red Moon. So if you look at that, you can see it tells you the events and when they're going to happen. So time just ticks by. So you don't need to go from room to room. If you like, the map is the timeline. So when time goes by, new things happen. And it's really cool. It helps to create this feeling of like the world being alive. I really liked it. Under a Blood Red Moon. It's a good one. Vampire and werewolf together. Not happily. Antagonists. Mind's Eye Theatre. Okay, this is another Mind's Eye Theatre book. As I say, didn't really have a lot to do with Mind's Eye Theatre, so I don't know exactly. But I guess this is your baddies, if you like. I don't know exactly how... look at these badasses right here. Wouldn't want to run into those guys in a dark night. Yeah, so you can have your baddies probably run by the Game Master. Government agencies, Centre for Disease Control, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and National Security Agency. Government agent character creation. So these are bad guys, I guess. I don't know if they'd necessarily be run by the Game Master, but they maybe you can play people that are, people that are against the characters. We've got here the Dungeon Master's Guide. The Dungeon Master's Guide for 3.5. See, it says Core Rulebook number 2. So, yeah, that sort of goes with that monster manual that we saw earlier on. You can see here it's got just all the dungeon mastery type stuff that you would have got from 1st edition. A significant thing that's missing from this, which there was in the Dungeon Master's Guide, in the 1st edition, is that there are no there are no stats, like monster stats, but without any descriptions. At the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide in the 1st edition, you could see all of the monsters, and it had a really handy thing called a THAC0 that was in there, which you had to work out by hand otherwise. But 3.5 does not have that in it. So, yeah. Dungeon Master's Guide. So that's the Monster Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide. I wonder if there's a Player's Guide in here somewhere. Vampire, the Storyteller's Handbook. The Storyteller is the name of the guy in charge. I've been calling him Game Master throughout. I've forgotten the special term. Storyteller. So this book's actually really good for anybody, for anything. Any game at all. It gives you a few good templates that you can use for your games. Setting them up, making sure they pay themselves off, so you can set up. It gives you help with figuring out some of those timelines for yourself. How you could go about doing that sort of thing. It's fun, good time. Just interesting to read. Like I say, for any sort of game, really good. for creating that cohesive feeling storyline that seems to be alive. Doesn't require the players to be around in order for the world to be moving on. Here's one of my favourite pictures. We got this mummy hanging out in this sarcophagus, and we've got the butler, Jeeves, no doubt, passing him his gear for the day, and you can see his hand coming out. Pretty funny. Storyteller's Handbook for White Wolf. Judging by the colour on the cover, it's for vampire, but it probably good for anything. Dragon magazine, Dragon number 200. It's got some sort of a, I don't know if you can see them on the front, some sort of a foil situation going on. I don't know what this is like. We've got Dragon Strike. Is it a video? Is it a game? I don't know. I never played it. Don't know anything about it. It's got some Elmore art on the cover. So that's always nice to see. Let's see. What articles does this have in it that might be of interest to people if you wanted to get Dragon magazine number 200. Special attractions. Time for a little magic. Celebrate the eclectic wonders of wizardry. Magic from the gods. Ed Greenwood wrote The Wizards 3. The mages entertain a surprise guest. The Colour of Magic. Not affiliated with Terry Pratchett, I imagine. Kijiji Adventure. Rich Stump. The Missing Spellbook of the World of Greyhawk. Setting Wizard. The Best, Margaret Weiss. The question is, will the best be good enough? I'm not quite sure what that means. There is the reviews of Eye of the Monitor. Not Minotaur, but actually Monitor. Role-playing reviews, Rick Swan. Perusing the best adventures in the fantasy genre. And Through the Looking Glass, Robert Bigelow, our seasonal shopping guide. There's an adventure module, The Whistling Skeleton by Ed Greenwood. There's a holiday crossword puzzle. Santa's Hidden Helpers. Let's have a quick go at that, shall we? Number 52, page 52. Let's see if we can get some of these clues. See if I can get a clue or two. Alright, so, crossword. Here we go, here's the crossword. I'll hold it still for a second for those of you that want to take a screen capture of this and play at home. Let's have a look. So, clue 1 across. Blank. A Wonderful Life. Frank Capra film. It's A Wonderful Life? Yeah, 3. Absolutely, there's 3. These, I actually thought these would probably be Dungeons & Dragons related. It certainly looks like we've got fantasy sort of characters doing this crossword. Is it a table? Is it a crossword? I'm not sure. Are these small people and it's a big crossword? These are important questions. Electric Swimmer. 14 across. That must be eel. Highest Point. Summit, maybe. Robust Tavern Drink. 20 across. It's got 3 letters, so I'm going to say ale. I seem to be very interested in 3-letter words here. In fact, the majority of these seem to be 3-letter words. Anyway, Dragon Magazine, number 200. Santa's something or other. I forget exactly what it said there. Anyway, what else is in this? We've got Santa's Hidden Helpers. The completed puzzle is hidden somewhere in the magazine. Just consider it our little present to you. The solution to a crossword is a present? The World Grimoire, Bruce A. Hurd, Meet the D&D games Winged Elves and Minotaurs. Not to be confused with Monitors from earlier on. Eye of the Monitor, Sandy Peterson. Sandy Peterson being the one of the people that got the Call of Cthulhu together, if I remember rightly. Even more complete Psionicist. More kits for your campaign's Warriors of the Mind. Psionics, I didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. Say no to Psionics. Dragon Magazine, number 200. Fancy foil thing on the cover. Ba-ba! Forgotten Realms. The Unapproachable East. Never seen this book before, don't know anything about it. Explore a mysterious land of might and magic. Tales from beyond the easting reach are told with awed voices and hushed tones. Known to most of Faerun as the homeland of Symbol, Okay, so Farron. So okay, so this is like D20 style. You would have had the got a note or two from somebody in there. The giant. There's an ogre. Some other stuff going on here. Anyway, yeah. So this is back from the now. Icewind Dale was the name of the game that you could play on your computer back in about probably about 2000. Somewhere around there. Somewhere around 2000 probably. Yeah, so I don't know what came first actually. Icewind Dale or this. Because Farron is Farron. Anyway. The Unapproachable East. It's a supplement book for 3.5. Unapproachable East. Oh, here we go. The Player's Handbook. Okay, so you remember a little bit earlier on I was talking about how there was the Manual of the Planes. So back in the day, what you got for Manual of the Planes was this, which is really sort of enticing to me, but I didn't really know what was going on with it. It's quite fun. Anyway, so that's what I was talking about earlier on, that Manual of the Planes thing. You can see back in the day these books were small, but the words were even smaller. So yeah, this is the this is first edition, but it's the second cover. In fact, as it happens, this one is the first one, and this one is the second one. So this is the player's guide with the famous statue of the eyeballs that are gems in it, getting pried out by those guys. And this is the second edition. Not second edition, the second printing, sorry. And looking at this, this book is actually, this is identical. As far as I can tell. Over the years I haven't noticed any differences. But even the font and stuff are the same. So yeah, as far as I can tell, you know, the same exact book, but with a different cover. This one's kind of got a bit of a munted spine on it, but still good. Player's Handbook. Player's Handbook, second printing. Player's Handbook, second printing. Good stuff. Vampire the Masquerade, Player's Handbook. So this is sort of one of the last books from the first edition. I think this one came out, this was before Revised came out. Well, this one's at a bad time. Oh, okay, so this one is perfect bound as well. I never liked hardcover books that were perfect bound. So you can see it's glued on the spine. It's a hardcover with a glued spine. It's a cheaper choice, but you definitely get what you pay for in that respect. So yeah, you can see here. I don't know if they learned from their mistakes, but if you look at this werewolf book, even though the spine is like the pages are pulled out, you can actually see along the spine there that they're actually sewn and put together. So even though this cover is coming off, the book itself is never going to come apart. It's all sewn together. So yeah, I don't know exactly what year these two came out relative to each other. Let me just double check that. Okay, so Vampire the Player's Guide, so it's got extra, it's like a splat book, I guess. Let me see. This Player's Guide is from, it's a secret. Very much a secret. 1993, and Werewolf here is, this book here is, you can see in the front of this bit, they were right into comic books, so you put a comic at the start of each book. Good. This one is from, yeah, I don't know. Boring. Listening to me trying to figure out that. I don't know what date that's from. But one of the writers, this is Mark Reinhagen. and he sort of like set the ball rolling. But if you want to read some interesting stories, you can read about Mark Reinhagen and what he's up to right now. Interestingly, one of the I think one of the guys in this, if I'm not mistaken, Sam nodding off Chup for getting the keenest insight into that fabled book. So yeah, if you're interested in stories from around the time these were written, if you listen to if you go to pennyredpodcast.com, or you go to hazardgaming.com, or you just look it up on iTunes, Penny Red, I've got a couple of interviews with Sam Chup. He's a good guy. Talks about some of the stuff going on at the time that those books were being written, specifically about Wraith, which I'm hoping there's some of in here. This is the first edition player's guide. So that's the player's guide. This is the not falling apart, although it is perfect bound, version of the book I just had out before. So player's guide, so it's got like more, it's got sort of more splat type stuff in it. And yeah, explosives, grenades, martial arts weapons, extra spells and so forth. New character classes, the Salubri. So yeah, so this is just a reformatted version. Let me just show you. So here's the Hashemite right here, and here's the theoretically better but actually garbage version of the Player's Handbook. So you can see, there you go. So that's that, and then that's that. I'm not sure exactly how much that you can see, but anyway, that's those. So yeah, so I mean, if you're going to get one of these books, I mean, if you can find a player's guide that's not falling apart with a hardcover, I'm going to guess it's okay, but neither of them are going to be collector's edition. And by the look of it, considering this one here is actually older and it looks like it's been used way more, I would say, you know what? The soft-covered player's guide is actually stronger. It's a better condition. It's a better book probably for the same information. One thing I will point out, I'm not sure if this is necessarily true, so let me just check before I start telling lies. But if you look in the early versions of the World of Darkness, when your characters got damaged, and realistically they were fighting and stuff like that most of the time, you would have injuries went -1 dice, -2, -3, -4, -5. But on a later editions, it goes -1, -1, -2, -2, -5, incapacitated. So you didn't have so the rules are a tiny bit different, not much. So if you're even a little bit handy with figuring stuff like that out, I would say that it's not going to be a problem. There's a top tip for you, a Hazard Gaming top tip. If you're looking to get into playing some 20-year-old role-playing games, 25-year-old role-playing games, coming up 30-year-old role-playing games, gee, I'm old. Soft cover versions appear to have stood the test of time a little better. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeon Master's Guide. This is a great book. It's a really, really good book. You can look how small the print is in it. Look at it all. This is a section on moving, conducting combat and so forth. Flying carpets, wings of flying, flying mounts. All, like, you name it. There's a thing in here. This is back in the day when Gary Gygax was still not far removed from wargaming, and you could sort of see those fingerprints all over these books, these these very detailed rules for very specific small sort of things. If you've played Dungeon World, like this is the sort of art. These pictures down the bottom here, that's the sort of art that crops up in that, even on the cover and everything. These sort of like almost fresco-ish type art. You can sort of see. I think it might even be this picture here, which is which is used as part of the cover. In fact, wait there, everybody. 1 second while I quickly go and get my copy of Dungeon World. I'm back. Did you miss me? I hope you're checking out the spines here. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I could keep them in shot so people could see them as I was going along. I don't know if that's actually worked. I'm not going to know till afterwards. But yeah, you can sort of see on the cover here we've got this sort of like tab. We've got these guys moving through a dungeon, and we've got different stuff happening at the front than is happening at the back. So I guess that's some of the influence of the art. But that's my Dungeon World book there by Adam Coble and Sage LaTorra. It's it's cool to call a hack of the Apocalypse World engine. I'm not sure exactly if the traditional meaning of hack is applicable really for that, but that's what it's come to be known as. So if you hear about people talking about Apocalypse World hacks, it means games which use the engine of Apocalypse World and use it to role play with different sort of scenarios than you find in Apocalypse World itself. So anyway, back to this. Yeah, so the same exact insides as the other version of. Nope, there's no new printed cover version of the Dungeon Master's Guide, but yeah, so. Dungeon Master's Guide for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Really good book. Very good book. This exact same book as the one with the... it's got a green cover and a guy opening up. And you can sort of see a city of brass behind him. It's the exact same book, but different cover. Same on the inside. Hunter book. Defender. So, there's my favourite White Wolf supplement, which is called Project Twilight. And in Project Twilight, you're Scully and Mulder. You're hunting down these supernatural creatures, and under the pretext of keeping them. It's really like an X-Files episode. It's really, really good. I love it. So anyway, out of that came a whole sort of thing called Hunter. And Hunter was sort of more a fleshing out of that idea, if you like. I don't mind Hunter. There's a whole bunch of backstory and stuff that goes into it. But if you're asking me for my money, I feel like just get Project Twilight. That's enough for being a hunter, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. Well, who else's would it be, really? Oriental Companion. So again, this is an Iron Crown Enterprises source book for the Orient, I suppose. So this would be good for Rolemaster and stuff like that. Strictly speaking, it's Shadow World, which is... So Rolemaster had rules, but had no... You put it another way. Shadow World is to Iron Crown Rolemaster, as Greyhawk is to Dungeons and Dragons. So this is like a setting, I guess, for using those rules with. So so this is Oriental Companion for Rolemaster, Shadow World, whatever. Aha! Ars Magica. Okay, so Ars Magica is the very first release for White Wolf. Went on to become the ones that released Vampire, and then Werewolf, and then Wraith, and all that type of stuff. So Ars Magica was that first foray into role-playing games. And I haven't played it, but I did read it back in the day, and it is very, very... It really heavily influenced the design that would come later on by Vincent Baker, who wrote Apocalypse World and and another one, Dogs in the Vineyard, and and is currently redoing Apocalypse World. But he really liked Ars Magica back in the day, and so was influenced by that. I don't know. I haven't read the two of them close enough together to really get a sense of how much you can notice it in those things. But anyway, the Order of Hermes. That's one of the traditions in Mage, the Ascension. So yeah, so if you want to go back to where White Wolf really got started, you'd go back to Ars Magica. It feels like we've got a bit of it's a bit damaged with some moisture or something, but it's a good looking book. First, it's designed by Ken Cliff and Mark Reinhagen, and then Mark Reinhagen went from here on to White Wolf. This is produced by White Wolf. You can see it's produced by White Wolf. I don't know what happened to Ken Cliff. There's maybe there's a story there, but yeah, I'll leave you to dig into that. Oh, Oriental Adventures. Remember back in the 1980s when everything was martial arts? TSR does. And they produced Oriental Adventures. So you've got a whole bunch of stuff in here. You've got samurai, and you've got all sorts of fancy kung fu fighting weapons and so forth. You've got this fancy page full of armor and stuff that was going on at that time. Oriental Adventures. So you can play samurai and all that type of carry on. There's spells in here, and you've got pictures of cool things like Sai, Ninja Turtle, maybe, if you combine these with some other rules. But anyway, so yeah, so samurai, monk, bushi, spirit folk, and so forth. So yeah, that's a supplement, if you like, for Dungeons and Dragons. There is no other cover of this. This came out after those new covers were released for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Written by Gary Gygax, the man himself. Our World of Darkness. Okay, another book covering various places in the World of Darkness mythos. You can see we've got a picture of England, in case you weren't able to find one. Keep in mind that back in the day, this is really just when the internet was getting started, so we might go, that's what England looks like. I mean, you can see it in atlases and so forth, but just having one of these to hand is pretty, it would be pretty useful, I guess. And so yeah, so this World of Darkness is got Britain in it, and Europe, Jordan, I guess Middle East, Hong Kong, Haiti, and then the Vampire Club in it. Splat book. Ooh, we've got a dun dun dun. I don't know what this is. I think this is for selling stuff. I think. It looks like it's like a Dungeon Master's screen or something like that, but it doesn't appear to be. Attack roll modifiers. Disable devices. Looks like this. It's not a Dungeon Master's screen. It's I don't know what it is. Anyway. Tumble. Survival. Actions. Attack. Provokes attacks of opportunity. Spellcraft. Sleight of hand. So maybe it's a player's screen? Player's screen? Do players have screens? Clan Book Malkavian. Right. Look at this little sticker right here. You see that? Way back in the day, there was a program produced called Kindred the Embrace. It was actually a television program. Amazing. I don't mean that the show was really good. What I mean is like role-playing on television. This is amazing. Right? Role-playing on television. This is the original Malkavian clan book. I'm hoping that page X will be in here. Let me see. Here we go. I think this might be it. There's little jokes and stuff in it. So the first joke that we have here is in the Malkavian Appendix 2, The Secret to the Riddle of the Universe, page 67. Ba-ba! Look, there's nothing. Does that mean there's no secret? I don't know. That's the joke, I guess. Yeah, there's so there's like it's only the funny stuff. Look, because Malkavians are crazy, don't you know? Yeah, somewhere in here I think is page X. I'm not going to flick through the whole thing, but somewhere in here there is a page X, but yeah, I don't know where. So I guess if you do some reading on the internet, you'll find. Look at this. Look at this page here. Look, everything is written backwards, so you have to look at it in a mirror to get it. There's a chap on the back picking his nose so hardcore he's got blood coming out his finger. So if you want to read that. So yeah, so Malkavian, they really went for it. There's lots of. Oh, here we go. Here's a werewolf. He says woof. They must have saved a lot of money on art on this book, gotta say. So yeah, so some. Oh look, pew pew, mind powers. Clan book Malkavian. Oh, look at this. Look. Do you suppose the people that were working at White Wolf at the time had kids that were passionate and said, I can do really good drawing, Mum, or I can do really good drawing, Dad? And they said, fine, give me your drawings, I'll put it in one of these books. And this is how we got Clan Book Malkavian. There's some good art in here as well. Don't think that I'm saying that it's all bad, but, I mean, scary plants, right? Anyway, yeah, somewhere in one of these books there's a page X. I thought it was in the Clan Book Malkavian. Looks like I might be wrong. But yeah. Yeah. Oh, hang on a minute. Maybe I got that blank page wrong. It says here, Buffy says, draw your own Malkavian and send it to us, care of Andrew Greenberg. Okay, so that blank page is for you to draw your own picture so you can add it to the other art that's in the other art that's in the book here. But anyway, Clan Book Malkavian. Fun times. Ooh, Malkavian, famous Malkavian, Rasputin, apparently, the Malkavian. White Wolf, the Masquerade, 2nd edition. Talked about that enough. Masquerade, live action role playing. Campaign Classics, Pirates. This is for Iron Crown. Iron Crown, if you thought that Dungeons & Dragons had small writing in it, that's what you get when you buy stuff from Iron Crown. Very, very, very small writing. Cool critical tables, pirates and so forth. Sail the High Seas, the Spanish Main. The Spanish Main, incidentally, means basically all of South America aside from Brazil. The Pope said to Spain and Portugal, we'll divide it up. You can have from this line on Portugal, and you can have from that line to the west Spain, and the Spanish Main actually means basically all of North America, aside from Brazil. And that is why they speak Portuguese in Brazil and Spanish everywhere else in South America. Look at this. Look at this thing. Pirates, Campaign Classics, Iron Crown. The Kindred's Most Wanted. This is, I think this is, yeah, this is, oh, they were right into it. This is like at the height of their We Love Comic Books phase. So this is look, this is, that's a regular size book. That's that. Look at it. I bet that book cost a bunch to print. It's got all glossy pages. It's got all these dudes in it. So I think whoever drew this picture was definitely influenced by Dave Windorf, the lead singer of Monster Magnet and writer of Monster Mag. Look at that. Tell me that's not Dave Windorf. The Kindred, Most Wanted. Is that one that's worth a pretty penny in this condition? Probably not, but again, books are for reading. Warhammer Rulebook. So I guess somebody had a, yeah, this is for miniatures. Night Goblins. This is a rule book. I guess somebody had Warhammer and they put that rule book in there. It's not really a role-playing book, but it's related, I suppose. Legends of the Five Rings. Role-playing in the Emerald Empire. So this is a role-playing book all about Oriental adventures, but one of the things that's really notable about this book is look at the size of the margins on it. I mean, there's some flavour in the margins in the same way that GURPS had. There's some real big margins on this. Look at that. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. It's a pretty long book, so there's not like there's a shortage of information. But anyway, these are the 5 rings. Role-playing in a quasi-Oriental. I don't even know if that's a proper word to use anymore. Oriental, Eastern, perhaps. Location. Heroic Samurai, Spellcasting Shugenja, Treacherous Ninja, The Terrible Wastes of Shadowlands, Welcome to the Emerald Empire. Legend of the 5 Rings. There's a card game based around that. Oh, my old favourite, Unearthed Arcana, the most reviled book, I think, produced in this run of Dungeons & Dragons. It's the book that I was talking about earlier on that had these extra character classes that weren't in the Player's book, so like Thief, Acrobat, Barbarian. Basically, take any of the characters that you had already, that you really liked, and then just get rid of them, because all of the characters in this book were better. So you've got, you liked Fighter, a Barbarian is better. You liked a Paladin, well, a Cavalier is better. You liked Thief, well, a Thief Acrobat is better. You liked a Fighter, well, you're going to like a Ranger better. Like, not Ranger, sorry, I already did that joke, didn't I? Never mind. Thief Acrobat, that's them. Anyway, so there's extra races in here, and there's a whole bunch of spells and so forth. Unearthed Arcana. 2 to go. Warhammer 40k, Dark Eldar. Again, not a role-playing book. It's a miniatures game book. Storyteller screen for Mage the Ascension. My fate, well, between this and Wraith. Storyteller screen. It's another one of the World of Darkness. So in order of publication went Vampire, and then Mummy maybe I guess you'd call it, and then Werewolf, and then you had Mage the Ascension, which is all about guys casting magic spells. Pew pew! And lastly, the Desert of Desolation. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons for Forgotten Realms. With the maps. Maybe this is the one that's worth a pretty penny. The Desert of Desolation. I think this might be an omnibus of. There's surprisingly no other modules in this box, but yeah, this is around about the time we started with box text. See that? Box text. So you would go through the book and you would, you'd get to a certain point and then you'd read it out loud. I don't know how Gary Gygax sort of felt about that. It was about this time that they had a falling out, I think, with TSR. So. Maybe he wasn't in favour of it, but if you want to get into that, you can read about it. But Forgotten Journeys, he produced Forgotten Journeys. Anyway, so Advanced Dungeons & Dragons official game adventure, Desert of Desolation. It's a campaign adventure for characters level 5 to 10. And this is I3 to I5. Now, in Dungeons & Dragons, there's a whole bunch of series of modules, which will be for another day. So that was my box of books for $60. With a free pen. So, what do you think? Which one was the one that was worth a pretty penny? I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know enough about them. But anyway, as I say, I'm not going to sell them. They're going to go into my collection. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed seeing the box of books that I purchased. And as time goes by, we'll dig into some other books, perhaps in a little more detail as we go along. But anyway, until next time, keep talking the walk.